Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Board Game Reviews. This week we're looking at Enigma Beyond Code. This is a bluffing and a social deduction game for 1 to 5 players. In this video I'm going to teach you how to play the game. If you're just looking for a quick overview, some sample gameplay, or an extra review of the game, check out the other videos in the series. Come on back after the break for a full tutorial on just how to play Enigma Beyond Code. Now, Enigma Beyond Code is a social deduction game for 1 to 5 players. And yes, this game does play for 1 player without needing a blindfold, but it's more of a classic solitaire style game. And I'm talking about the classic card game of solitaire. It plays really well, and I've actually managed to play a couple of hours of the gameplay, but just understand it's not really a social deduction game as 1 player. It truly is a solitaire style game, so this video is going to concentrate on the 2 to 5 player rules. If there's enough interest for me to go over the 1 player rules, I can definitely film another video and show that, but again, we're going to cover the actual social deduction bluffing version of the rules itself. So to start a game, what we need to do is we need to set up the amount of different rules that the players have. Now, the very first time you play the game, they suggest that you pick 5 rules to choose from. That's going to be 2 of the decryptors, 2 of the dark messiahs, and then 1 of the wanderers. And then you're going to shuffle up all 5 of these rolls up, and then you're going to deal these out to the players at the table. Which basically means if you're playing with less than 5 players, it does mean that some of these rolls are going to be left out. But if you have 5 players, you know that 2 decryptors, 2 dark messiahs, and 1 wanderer are definitely going to be in the game. That's going to help you learn the mechanics of the game, and I definitely suggest the first time you play the game is the best way to play it, just so you understand the mechanics, because the game is a little bit more unique when it comes to social deduction games. This is a much more deeper game that is much more about getting in the minds of the other players, learning the mechanics, and understanding why certain roles want certain things to happen. That's going to help you be a better player of the game. Once you've actually played the game a couple times, though, you want to play with the full allotment of all the different roles that are available in the game. Once you're ready to do that, you're simply going to use 1 copy of the Wanderer, 1 copy of the Decryptor, and 1 copy of the Dark Messiah. Then you're going to remove the other 2 one of the Dark Messiahs, remove 1 of the Dark Decryptor rolls from the game. Then you're going to shuffle in all the extra rolls, the Medium, the Ghost, the Saboteur, and the Archivist, which means you have a total of 7 rolls to choose from. Now, it's still a 5-player game in this case, but just understand that now you can have up to 2 rolls left out of every single game. And now you're going to see the full way that the game is actually going to be played. Additionally, you need to take all the 10 different locations that are available in the game. And since I'm teaching you how to play the 2 to 5 player version, we're going to take out the solo work card. This card is only in the game when you're playing a solo game, and it's going to replace the teamwork card. So when you're playing the solo game, you will simply take the teamwork card out of the game and replace it with a solo work. Since I'm showing you how to play the multiplayer game, we're going to take the solo work card and we are going to remove it out of the game. Once that's been done, we are simply going to also look at all the player aids. There are 5 player aids for the multiplayer game, and then there's 1 player aid for the solo game. You can tell the difference because the solo player game just shows a 1 and the 2 and shows a much more concise version of all the different rules. Simply remove that from the game. You're simply going to have 5 copies of all the roles, and this is the player aids for all the players. Once you have that, you'll simply take these off to the side, and you're going to shuffle up the 9 different locations available in the game. And you're going to place them out face down without looking at them in a nice 3x3 grid out, and an easy access for all the players out there available for the game. Once you place all 9 of the locations out there, every single player needs to get a player aid. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to play the game for a 5-player game really quickly, just so you get a rough idea of exactly how the game works and all the mechanics work. It's going to work out much better in understanding the actual parts of the game. Shuffle the 7 different location cards, or I'm sorry, the 7 different rule cards for all the players. Every single player is going to get 1 rule card as we place face down. The other 2 rule cards are going to be removed from the game without showing them to any of the other players. But when I say remove them from the game, they're just removed from the game temporarily because these cards are available for various things that can happen. So simply place them off to the side. Once you've done that, every single player needs to secretly, without looking at any other players' roll cards, look at their own personal roll card, figure out what their role is, look at the bottom of the card, and that's going to tell you exactly what requirements you need to win the game. It's going to be listed on the bottom of the card. It's also going to be listed on your player aid. Once you figure out what your role is, simply place it back down again without any other players looking at it. The only thing left to do is you need to get all the various components out, such as the victory conditions, silence tokens, the decryptors, the chaos tokens, and the final chaos marker right here. And then 1 player gets to be the timekeeper. Whoever is going to be the first player is the one who's going to get to be the timekeeper, and the timekeeper is going to take the time token. Now, the time board right here is double-sided. One side is going to have an hourglass, 4 spaces, then a shattered hourglass, and the other side is going to have more spaces than that. And it's also going to show a little silhouette of one person. That's to let you know that's the side for a single solo player game. Again, that is playing the game as more of a solitaire style game, not as a social deduction game. So we want to make sure we have it on the side up showing the hourglass, 4 spaces, and the end game condition. And then we're simply going to place the hourglass on the hourglass spot, and this is going to be given to the player who's going to be the first player for the game. Now emphasize, you can put the hourglass marker on the hourglass symbol, and then when you're ready to start the game, the very first player, before they take their turn, and this is going to happen every single turn, before the first player takes their turn, they're simply going to advance the hourglass before they take their turn. If the hourglass ever advances to the final spot right here, that is the end of the game. And if the saboteur is in the game, they will be the winner of the game as long as they don't have a silence token. But there's no saboteur in the game, or the saboteur has a silence token, Chaos is going to score 1 victory. And that's only going to matter if we're playing multiple rounds. If we're only playing 1 round, that does not matter. If we're playing multiple rounds, Chaos will score a victory. If Chaos manages to score 3 victories, they will actually win the game, which means no player wins the game. Do understand, though, as you play the game more and more, it's going to be less and less likely that Chaos will actually win the game, but that is something the players need to be extremely mindful of. So just remember that in this game, every single player is going to get 4 rounds because before the game even starts, before the first player takes their action, they're going to advance the time marker. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. And again, once we get to that last space, we're going to advance that space right before player 1 even goes, so we won't get that 5th round. The way a player wins the game is on their turn if they can fill out the requirements for their role. For example, if you happen to be the decryptor, to win the game on your turn, you just need to have a decryption token, and then all you need to do is you need to know where the command room is, and then also know where the Enigma code room happens to be. If you have a decryption token and happen to know where the command room is and happen to know where the Enigma code room is, and you can point that out by the different locations, you instantly win the game. Now, it doesn't mean those locations actually have to be face up. So, for example, in this circumstances right here, if I happen to be the decryptor, and if I happen to have a decryption token, I can go ahead and say, I'm going to try to win the game. And then I need to start pointing out all the locations. For example, the command room and the Enigma code room. So if I can successfully flip them over and prove to the rest of the players that I know the locations of those different locations, I have instantly won the game. But if I am trying to reveal those locations, and if I am not able to reveal them, whether because I guessed wrong or because I just forgot where the locations are, I instantly lose and I'm actually out of the game for the entire round. So for example, if I was the decryptor and I had a decryption token on my turn like I required, and I said the command room is right here, and I flipped it over to reveal to everybody else that's where the command room is, and then if I said the Enigma code is this card right here, I would be wrong and I am out of the game for the round, and everybody else gets to keep playing. If anybody else can win the game, then they are also going to be the winner, and I am going to be completely out for the round. I get to come back to the next round, but I'm going to be completely out of the game for that entire round. So that's your grand objective of how you win the game. Now let me show you exactly just how you play the game itself. Now at the start of the round, before the starting player takes their action, they need to make sure they remember to advance the time dial. Don't forget the time dial advances to the last spot. We are not going to play that round at all. That is actually the end of the game. And again, if the saboteur is in the game and not silenced, they're going to win. If there's no saboteur in the game at that point, then Chaos is going to score 1 of their victories. But the very first thing that's happening before the round starts is the first player is going to advance the time token. And then the first player needs to look at the various different locations, and they pick any location on the board. Doesn't matter if the location is face down or if the location is face up. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the location face up because you understand why this is important in just a moment here. So if the location's face up, I can pick any location out there on the board, whether it's a face up location or it's a face down location. If it's a face down location, I can take that card, pick it up and look at it and figure out what that location is and place that location back down on the board. And then I'm going to announce to all the other players what that location is. Here's the trick. I don't need to be honest about what that location happens to be. If all the other players at the table decide that they don't want to challenge me, I can perform the action for any location that I named. So for example, since you've already seen, we know this happens to be the Enigma code location because I've already shown that to you. But let's say I pick that card and place it back down and I say it's the command room. If nobody else at the table challenges me, I can simply look at my handy dandy cheat sheet and perform any of the actions that the command room goes ahead and gives me. Once I perform the actions for the command room, my turn is going to be over. We're going to pass the play to the next player in clockwise order. Here's the trick of the game though. Now, this is where the social deduction and the bluffing for the game comes in. I announced that this was the command room. Let's say one of the other players at the table decides to challenge me. Now, they will challenge me before I pull out or perform the actions for the command room itself. And if they decide to challenge me, something's going to happen. But let me preface this with another rule in the game. If multiple people decide to challenge me, the one who's closest to me in turn order is the one who actually gets to carry out the challenge. We're only going to have one challenge whenever there's a challenge. But if somebody does decide to challenge me, the person who challenges me is going to look at this location also. Now remember, I claimed that this location was the command room, and we all know that this location is not the command room, it is actually the Enigma code. So the person who challenged me gets to look at this card. If they see that I was untruthful and did not tell the truth, they're simply going to place the card back down, and then I am going to gain a silence token. Once I've gained that silence token, my turn is over and I'm not going to perform the action for the room I claim. And now everybody else at the table has a little bit of knowledge. Everybody else at the table knows that this is definitely not the command room because I lied. I told something that was not true. The other thing about the silence tokens, the silence token basically ends your turn. You cannot perform any more actions once you get a silence token, and play is going to pass over to the next player in order. And then they're going to be able to get the chance to decide what kind of action they want to take. But let's say, for example, that this happened to actually be the command room and I was telling the truth. So I had looked at this location, I had placed it back down, I had announced that it was the command room. And let's say this player over here decided to challenge me because they did not believe it was the command room. This player right here would pick up the card, look at it, and they would see that I was telling the truth and it truly was the command room. Since I was telling the truth, that card will be placed face up. The person who challenged me will get a silence token. That'll be very important when their turn comes around. And then, since I was not called out on a bluff unsuccessfully and did not get a silence token, I can now take the action in the command room. Now, all these actions are listed on this card. I'm not going to go over all these different locations because it's going to extend the length of this video. And it's very easy to see what all these different locations do. It's very easy. They're all very plain listed on this cheat sheet right here. And they're also all listed in the theme guide, where it also tells you all the requirements to win for all these different rules in the game. So it's not important to this video. You can very easily read those rules, and it's very, very simple. But once I perform the action for the command room, my turn is going to be over, and the next player in player order is going to do their action too. And it's going to be the exact same thing that I just did. They're going to pick any location out here on the board. They will simply take a look at it, place it face down, and they are going to claim what that location is. If nobody challenges them, they can take the action whatever little location that they claimed it is. And again, if anybody challenges them, we're going to go through that process all over again. Now, here's the very, very important thing about the silence tokens. If a player has a silence token, not only can they not win the game, but a player with a silence token cannot challenge you at all, which is a very interesting rule about the game. So for example, if we come up to the third player in player order and all the other players on the table happen to have silence tokens, this person right here can look at this card right here and point at it and say, hey everybody, this is the Enigma code. And nobody at the table can challenge them, because when you have a silence token, you have a certain amount of restrictions in the game. 1, you cannot perform a location action. 2, you cannot really speak. You're not supposed to speak when you play the game. And 3, you cannot challenge another player when they go through a lie or tell a truth or whatever it happens to be. So if everybody at the table happens to have silence tokens, you pretty much have carte blanche to claim any card as anything you want. Nobody can challenge you, and you get to have all that nice social deduction and bluffing fun. Now, there's a couple different caveats to being dishonest about locations and exactly what those locations require you. Now, in this game, your first thing you're going to do is basically call it your action. Now, when your action involves a room, sometimes it's going to allow you to look at a room or claim a room that allows you to look at different locations. You can only be dishonest about the original location. And to give you an example about that, there's a card in the game called the library. What the library does is it allows you to look at a different location out here on the board. So if I look at the library, whether I have claimed the library or truthfully have looked at the library and take the action of the library, look at a different location, when I look at that other location, I have to be honest about that location, whether I'm forced to place it face down and say what the card is or whatever it is. I cannot lie at that point. You can only lie on your original action only. And that's very, very important. So I could, for example, say that this card was a library right here, and if nobody decided to challenge me, I could go ahead and carry out that action by looking at another card. The trick to that is you have to be very careful, is if I claim this is a library and they end up peeking at this card and we see that this card really is the library, it's going to be a very dead giveaway. So make sure you're very careful about using this bluffing mechanic, because it can go back and bite you. Because if you come over here and pick this library, the mechanic's going to let everybody else on the table know that this is definitely a library. And then they're going to know that you lied about this card. So now you're caught in a double whammy. So be very careful about how you're bluffing. Again, this is all about the brilliant design and how the interaction of all these locations go together when you're playing this game. Now, you're free to be dishonest about other things in the game, but you can never be dishonest with any other mechanics about the game. The only mechanic itself that you can be dishonest about is the very first card that you pick, and that's basically called naming the game. And basically what it is, like I said, is you're going to look at the card, you're going to name what the card is, and everybody else at the table can either accept your naming or they can go ahead and call your bluff. Now, the other thing you can do on your turn, and you can do this either before naming a card or after naming a card, is you can go ahead and try to accomplish your player's mission and try to win the game. Now remember, you cannot do that if you have a silence token, but if you want to go ahead and try to win the game, you will simply reveal your specific role that you have to be in the game. And some of these roles are required to have a token. So if you cannot produce that token, you definitely do not want to do this because you cannot win the game at all. For example, the decryptor has to have a decryption token. The Dark Messiah is required to have a chaos token, and there's other requirements that you need to have. But if you don't have the token, or if you don't have the lack of a token, so to speak, then you definitely cannot win the game. After you've done so, you simply must point at the other locations that are required to win the game. So for example, for the decryptor, all I need to do is point out where the command room happens to be and also where the Enigma code happens to be, whether they're face up or face down. Now here's where the trick of the game comes in though. If you're wrong about the locations, for example, if I said this is the command room, which should be obvious to everybody since it's face up, but then if I made a mistake and forgot where the different locations are and I claimed that this is the Enigma code and I would simply flip it over and reveal that, everybody else would see that I would be wrong and I would be eliminated from the game. If I am eliminated from the game, my roll card is going to remain face up, but any tokens I happen to have gained are going to be removed. I don't get to keep any of my tokens, which means you're not going to carry tokens over between the rounds. And then my roll is going to be left face up, and I'm out of the game for this round, but I get to come back if we're playing multiple rounds after that. Now, those are the basic rules of the game. Now, there's just a couple of tokens to explain about the game. Now, I've already explained silence tokens, but the interesting thing to understand about this game is it doesn't matter what kind of tokens we're talking about, no player can ever have more than one copy of every single token. So no player can have more than one silence token, no player can have more than one chaos token, and no player can have more than one decryption token. Of course, you can always lose those and gain another one after you used or lost it, but you can never possess more than one of them at a time. Now, I've already gone over the silence tokens, but I just want to cover them very quickly just to make sure you understand exactly how these silence tokens work. But basically, when it comes to the silence tokens, it's basically thematically you've been caught by the mansion security guards, and that's what it represents. So if you want to get thematic reasoning behind this, if you have a silence token, that means the guards from the mansion have pulled you off to the side, and that's why you really can't interact with the locations anymore. The important thing to understand about the silence tokens, though, is that when you gain them, your turn immediately ends and you keep your token, and then the next player gets to act. While you have one of these silence tokens, you cannot challenge another player naming a mansion card, even if they're lying about a face-up card, and that's very, very important. Understand that if you get enough of these silence tokens out there, you pretty much have carte blanche if you're the only person on the table who doesn't have a silence token. It can be very powerful and a little bit devious. When you start your turn in possession of a silence token, so for example, let's say this player starts their turn with a silence token, you still are going to carry out part of your turn, and that basically means you are still going to name a location, but you're not going to actually take on the ability of that specific location itself. Basically, all you're going to do as a silence player is you're going to pick up a location, you're going to look at the card, and you're going to place that location back down. You're not going to say what it is, you're not going to name it, you're not going to do any of the actions. You get no abilities from that card location itself. Then your turn is going to end, and the next player is going to start their turn. Once that next player started their turn, then and only then you may remove the silence token from your player sheet, and that does mean that when the turn comes back around you, as long as you don't gain another silence token, then you're free to take your full action by doing the naming routine, by naming a location, doing all those different things, and doing what the different locations allow you to do. The next thing we have decryption tokens. Now, decryption tokens perform two duties in the game. The first thing they are is they are a requirement for one of the roles in the game to even win. So if that role doesn't have the decryption token, they can't even win the game. But decryption tokens allow you to take extra turns as long as you have the decryption token before your turn starts. If you gain a decryption token on your turn, you can't actually use it. So if you gain this on the fourth round, you're obviously not going to be able to use it for the extra action. But if you start your turn in possession of a decryption token, then you can actually do some pretty cool things. If you have a decryption token on your turn, you're free to discard it on your turn and name a mansion card. And it's just like very normal naming action. The only caveat to those, though, is you can't name a face-up card. So you could name any card that's face down. But the cool thing about using these decryption tokens is you can use these before or after your regular turn, which can be very powerful and very devious, especially for some characters, such as a saboteur, which could allow you to go ahead and pick the location, allows you to advance the time token. Then they could burn a decryption token to go ahead and advance the turn one more time. And if they happen to do that at the end of the game, they can pretty much guarantee a very solid win for themselves. So decryption tokens are very, very powerful, but understand you can only use them if you started the turn with a decryption token. If you gain it during your turn, you cannot use it on the turn you gain it. The final thing we have is we have the chaos tokens. Now chaos tokens perform multiple roles. For example, one of the roles requires a chaos token just to win the game, and that's the Dark Messiah. They have to actually have it to win the game. If they have it, that's one of the possible victory conditions. If they don't have it at the end of the game, there's no way they can win the game. Additionally, there are some things that can cause you to gain chaos tokens, and they can cause you to lose chaos tokens, but some of the locations will actually interact differently with you depending on if you do or do not have a chaos token. For example, in this location, if you don't have a chaos token, it allows you to take a decryption token. If you have a chaos token, you can actually lose the chaos token, which can be very important for some of the roles that don't want to have a chaos token. Additionally, a chaos token can be used to cancel the effect of the Enigma machine location, which can be very important because the Enigma machine location, if I can find it very, very quickly, actually allows you to adjust the time and start doing some other different things and rearranging the different mansion locations, which I'm sure you can understand some roles definitely don't want that to happen. The game is going to be continued to play round over round until the final round either happens ending the game and the saboteur gets a chance to win, or one of the players successfully carries out their mission. Once a player successfully carries out their mission, that round is going to be over and that player is going to gain one of the victories of the three if you're playing for multiple rounds. Once a player has performed and gained one victory, what we're going to do next is all the players are going to turn in all the tokens they have except for the victory tokens. All the players are going to turn in their rolls, and we're going to shuffle up the rolls, re-deal out all the rolls to all the players, and then we're going to shuffle up and re-deal out all the locations face down, and then we're going to play another round. And we're simply going to play until one player manages to get 3 victories. Once a player has 3 victories, they're going to be the grand winner of the game, and then you can go ahead and start up another series of games, or just play a couple one-off kind of games. Now, those are the basic rules of the game. The only thing I didn't cover is this is one of those unique games that does allow you to actually take notes as you're playing. So if you like, you're free to hand out one of these little handy-dandy notebooks to all the players before they start, where they can scribble down any notes they want, and it's going to be in the same grid order as the different locations. You write down possible theories, or when you think people are lying, or different things like that, or what people are claiming when they name various different locations. These notebooks are very handy. There's also a sheet that you can photocopy in the rulebook that allows you to make as many copies of that as you want. Additionally, when you play the game as a 2-player game, the game rules are going to be just ever so slightly differently. And those are going to be covered on page 10 of the rulebook, and it's basically going to change out how you're going to deal with the cards, and it's going to change how the Cerberus Phantom himself is going to work when you play the game. Additionally, there is also this very cool alternative game variant way that you can play the game, which I actually recommend once you're very familiar with the rules. It's going to slowly include all the different roles into the game, and it's going to give you a pattern how these roles are going to come into the game. And adds a little bit more theme to the game, and it's actually a way I enjoy playing the game quite a bit. I actually recommend playing this game once you're more familiar with the rules, but again, if you just want to play with more of the random way with all the rules come out, you're more than welcome to do so. But this is actually a variant I really greatly enjoy. Finally, there's also a nice turn overview for the game rules and the summaries at the back of the book. So between this video and these nice handy dandy guides, you should be able to figure out how to play this game quite easily and quite well. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I will definitely get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. Be sure to answer emails as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this channel, if you enjoy the content, think about supporting the channel over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/otsbgr. Your support can help cover my costs and help keep the channel growing strong. If you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.